microphone muted. Most of us are used to this by now. Transcription has started. And we also ask that you keep your camera turned off during the presentations, unless you're making an intervention. It's simply so that we have bigger pictures of everyone. And then do use the chat to react, comment, and ask questions. I will also take time to invite questions in whatever way. If people can join in, that's wonderful. And as you see there, if you have any technical issues, please just send a message in the chat. You'll see a note about transcription there right now, or email us if you have any further problems, because we want to help everyone participate. So now we can take the housekeeping away and start to go into the content of the session, basically by saying that this webinar, thank you, is organised by the Green Deal Project Support Office, and the special focus, as you can see all the way through the agenda, and presumably that's why you're here, is about citizen science. And in various presentations, we're going to hear more about citizen science, possibly including the discussion of what is or isn't citizen science. I chair this session. You'll see my name right at the start. And I should also say that I chair the Mutual Learning Exercise, or the MLE, which is continuing right now on citizen science. And if you want to know more about the Mutual Learning Exercise, I suspect several colleagues will refer to it while they're giving their presentations. But you can also find plenty of material, including the reports, as they're finished, at the Policy Support Facility website. So there's plenty more information about the MLE. And before I go ahead to introduce the agenda and to hand over to our speakers, I wanted to bring in Emily Van Dam, who I think wants to also say some words of welcome. Emily.
Thanks, Alan. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's really nice to see that so many of you are here today for this webinar. I will be very brief. It's really just to explain you in a few words the overall projects in which this webinar is taking place and the overall context for it. So I work in DG RTD for the European Commission in the unit C5, which is Social and Ecological Transition, where I follow and coordinate the Green Deal for the DG, and I'm also responsible for the implementation of the Green Deal Project Support Office on behalf of the Commission. So just briefly, for you to understand a bit why we decided to establish this Green Deal Project Support Office, because as you know, in 2019, the European Green Deal, so the initiative to make Europe the first climate neutral continent, was announced by the Commission. So it had to be followed by action. And so what we did is that in the GRTD, we launched under Horizon 2020, which was our previous framework program, a European Green Deal call, which was covering all the different aspects of the Green Deal. It was a 1 billion call, and out of it, we funded 73 projects. So because the objectives of the Green Deal are in 2030 and 2050, which is coming pretty soon, we thought that a good way to really optimize the results of those 73 projects was to have a project that will help them coordinate. So that's the Green Deal Project Support Office. So it's an action that supports the coordination and the development of cooperation activities between the Green Deal Code project, and it really helps them to find synergies between themselves to maximize the impact that they have and ensure that they'll help achieve the Green Deal objective by 2030 and 2050. So to do that, the Green Deal Project Support Office have a series of activities, and this webinar is part of those activities. So this webinar is the first one of a series of other webinars, and the aim is really to highlight the cutting edge development and innovation from the Green Deal Code projects and share those with a wider audience, because it's important really to share knowledge between projects, the Green Deal Code projects, but also the other projects or the wider audience. So today the focus is on citizen science, and what we want to do today is really to have you exchange information, exchange your experiences, to share your success stories, but also the difficulties, the challenges, the barriers that you may be facing when dealing with citizen science. We want to hear about the lessons that you've learned dealing with citizen science, and also we want to identify the good practices, because we believe that by putting those information together, we can really learn from each other, and it's really the goal of the Green Code support office. So yes, I wish you to have a really good and fruitful conversation, and I hope this webinar will be useful for all of you. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emily. Yeah, let's echo those thoughts that we hope to have the opportunity in this busy session to reflect on some of the challenges, some of the barriers, but also some of the possibilities that there are for citizen science. And let's see if we can help each other. So now that I turn to the agenda, you'll see that we have a series of really great speakers. I'll hand over to the first one in just a second. And then you will also see at 15:45 to 16:10, there's the opportunity for discussion and reflection. And then again at 16:25 to 16:40, we also have the opportunity for discussion. So I hope we'll be able to give out some useful information. And I hope also you'll have the chance to ask any questions or raise any points about what is an exciting subject. And I know that Gabriella agrees that it's an exciting subject because she's been working also on the mutual learning exercise on citizen science. So Gabriella is a policy officer at DG Research and Innovation, working in the Open Science Unit, where she's involved in developing and implementing policy for citizens and societal engagement in research and innovation, and contributing to citizen engagement actions into the European research area. So Gabriella, we're very, very pleased to have you here. Thanks for coming, and I'll give the word over to you.
Thank you, Alan. I will try to share my screen.
But I think we can see the first PowerPoint, Gabriella.
Yes, but my PowerPoint probably is slightly different. So I would like to share my own if it's possible. Otherwise, I will. But I don't know. Share. Do you see?
Yes, we see. We've just started to see something now. Yes, thank you, Gabriella.
Yes.
Yeah, that looks different.
You see the note or you see the full screen?
I think we see the full screen,
okay.
the notes.
Perfect. So good afternoon. So as Alan, thank you, Alan, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation. So it's not, I am Gabriella Leo, and I am the policy officer. In this presentation, I will try to give you an overview of what are in this moment the policy and program effort that the Commission is putting on citizen science. I start with what you can find in the fact sheet, in our fact sheet on citizen science. So what is citizen science? In this fact sheet, you say as a definition that citizen science can be described as the voluntary participation of non-professional scientists in research and innovation at different stage of the process and at different level of engagement. from shaping research agenda to gathering, processing, analyzing data, and assessing the outcomes of research. But why do we promote citizen and societal engagement in the Open Science Unit and at the Commission? We do this because we think that citizen science can increase the excellence of research and innovation by enlarging the scope and the quality of the data collected. The scope of the research and innovation can, I don't read everything, but can help to leverage collective intelligence, but can also increase the effectiveness. When with effectiveness, we often think about give value to the taxpayer money, and the citizen science can improve the effectiveness and relevance and uptake of research and innovation by ensuring that research and innovation aligns with the needs, expectation, and value of the society, and can also trigger behavioral change, as I think we can see in many of our projects. And finally, but equally important, can increase the trust of society in science. So the interest for citizen science and the role of citizen science in policy and decision making has been growing in Europe and at national level. In this moment, citizen science, for citizen science, we got some important achievement. Citizen science is a core dimension of the Pact for Research and Innovation in Europe that is adopted by the Council last November, and the Pact lists societal responsibility as a main principle, and active citizen and societal engagement in research and innovation as a priority area for joint action. And also, citizen science is a core dimension of the open science policy that is not only open access. And the open science policy is a policy priority embedded in the new European Research Area Policy Agenda, aiming to achieve a greater societal impact and increased trust in science. And as I told at the beginning of this slide, there is an interest also at national level. And for this, in January 2022, the Commission launched this mutual learning exercise on citizen science, proposed from a member state with the aim to support and expand citizen science at national and transnational level. With this mutual learning exercise, what member states what are the expectations of member states, at least, is to strengthen their citizen science national policy and initiatives by exchanging lessons and exploit synergy, and possibly identify also upscaling suitable cross-national citizen science initiatives. But I think that Margaret and Rosa will give much more information. And so the Commission support citizen and societal engagement in citizen science since FP7, or perhaps even FP6. But in Horizon 2020, in the Science with and for Society part, the Commission supported citizen science, supported transformation of university and research institute, gave support to societal engagement and research integrity and ethics and science communication. The main objective of the Science with and for Society part of Horizon 2020 were to build effective cooperation between science and society, and foster the recruitment of new talent for science, and pair the scientific excellence with social awareness and responsibilities. And in particular, the work program 2018-2020 20 had 3 strategic orientation addressing explicitly citizen and societal engagement, the building the territorial dimension, the exploring and supporting citizen science, and building the knowledge base for SWOFs. So when we look at the SWOF portfolio, we can find a bunch of very relevant projects about citizen science, project where you can see high quality engagement of all societal actors, activity of co-design and co-creation, and responsible research and innovation. And we have a portfolio with 23 projects funded with, for example, 60 million euros on doing co-design and co-creation towards citizen science. But also we funded 12 projects with 30 million of euro on topics related to opening territorial governance to society, on the opening up research funding and performance organization to society. And in this slide that probably some of you have already seen, there are some project transversal to that cross-cut everything, project that really aims to foster, grow, and encourage the best practice as EU citizen science or CS Track or Supermori. So project that give a cross-cutting instruments to measure the impact, to measure also to have a list of what happened in citizen science. And very recently we have published a result pack about citizen science, where you can find 11 very inspiring citizen science projects. And if you follow the link in my slide, you can download this document. And what happened now with Horizon Europe? Horizon Europe continues to support citizen and societal engagement, and is even more because Horizon Europe that aims to deliver on the EU policy priority as the European Green Deal, the circular economy, and other that I don't go to read, but you can see. Many of these are very relevant for the people involved today in this meeting. And what is important in Horizon Europe is that open science, which includes citizen science, citizen societal engagement, is not just a priority of the European research area. It's the modus operandi of the Horizon Europe program. It's really integrated everywhere. And in the proposal evaluation, and we consider this a very important achievement, the engagement of citizens, civil society, and end user is addressed in the excellence criteria for the evaluation of the proposal. And the open science practices are an integral part of the proposed methodology that you have to write for the new project, for the proposal that you submit in Horizon Europe, and will be evaluated because in the evaluation form is required. And the third very important point is the key impact pathway. Horizon Europe, one of the novelty of Horizon Europe is the key impact pathway. So Horizon Europe is an impact-driven program, and 2 out of the 9 key impact pathways identified in Horizon Europe are relevant for open science, and in particular for citizen science and citizen societal engagement. We have to look at the KIP6, strengthening the uptake of innovation in society. That is really about engagement and in society in research and innovation uptake, and development. Always, as I told you before, citizen societal engagement is a principal priority in Horizon Europe, and co-design, co-creation and engagement of citizen and civil society organizations are integrated across Horizon Europe program and within the topic test. So you don't find, as in Horizon 2020, just a bunch of call under the SWOFS program where citizen science is required, but citizen science and citizen societal engagement is mainstreamed across the program, and in particular in the cluster work program and in the EU research and innovation mission programs. And in fact, and you can see in the program guide, in the where are listed the example of project activities, that if you look at the co-design, co-creation, and co-assessment activities, you can see that the ethics involving citizen and user, citizen science are explicitly mentioned.
Gabriella, you have about 2 minutes now.
Yes, I'm finished.
Perfect.
So just to highlight you that citizen science is part of the is an instrument that can be used for the mission implementation plan that foreseen a number of participatory instrument. And the 5, I just remember you that the 5 EU research and innovation mission are climate, cancer, ocean, climate neutral and smart cities, and the soil. And but in addition to this, we have also specific call devoted to citizen societal engagement and citizen science under the wide era part of the work program. We already launched 4 calls. With several expected impact. Among them, I just mentioned increased engagement of citizens with research and innovation, and increased capacity of the EU system to conduct open science, and increased alignment of strategic research with society needs, expectation, and value. And I have finished. So just to give you a summary of my main point, citizen science has the potential to improve the excellence and the impact of research and innovation and deepen the relationship between science society. Citizens can contribute to science and innovation in a meaningful way. In a topic coming ranging from environmental observation to health and energy sector. Citizen engagement that includes citizen science is at the core of the Pact for Research and Innovation, and that is a cross-cutting priority of the new European research area. In Horizon Europe, citizen engagement is an aspect of excellence criterion and methodology, and is one of the priority, and the involvement of citizens in co-design, co-creation, and co-assessment are foreseen across Horizon Europe activities, notably in the context of mission and cluster, and Horizon Europe offer also dedicated support to citizen science.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle, and thank you to our commissioner. We can perhaps read what Maria Gabrielle says there, but concerning interaction between science, citizen scientists and policymakers. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. And there was a question in the chat, some of you probably saw, will the presentations be shared? I think the answer in the chat is already that yes, because there was so much information there, Gabriella. Thank you for getting us off to a strong start and for putting it in the context of developments within the European Commission. And then I'm going to quickly move on to Rosa. Rosa is one of the experts involved with the mutual learning exercise. And thank you to Margaret for putting a note about that in the chat. And she is the CEO and founder of Science for Change, a company that seeks to bring science closer to society with co-creation and dialogue. and she might well also talk about the citizen science app Odor Collect, because smells often appear when Rosa is talking. That doesn't sound so great, but I know you're very fascinated by odor, Rosa. So I'll pass over to you.
Sorry. Thank you, Alan, so much. I will try to share my screen directly so I can move the slides quicker. Just 1 second. Can you see it? Can you tell me if you can see the presentation?
No,
I
we
think
see
no.
I beg your pardon, I was muted. We're looking at the summary. No, I think we're looking at Gabriella's text, perhaps.
Okay, 1 second.
Gabriella, have you unshared? Yeah, it's a Google Doc we're looking at.
You are good. No, so it was my minutes. Wait, I will change the screen.
Something is happening now, Rosa.
Yeah, I know. Let me try again. I will put the presentation on the other screen. Just 1 second. Okay. Good. And I will share. Sorry, Alan, for wasting.
No, fine, Rosa. This is how it is.
Speak quicker in compensation.
We're not seeing your screen yet.
Yes, I know. Just 1 second.
know something is happening.
Probably now you can see it.
Almost not. Yes, now we see it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Perfect. So thanks for the introduction, and also to Gabriela and Emily to give the context, because I really want to talk a little bit about the challenges and the barriers regarding the implementation of citizen science projects and potential mitigation strategies that we have been discussing in the past years in the context of the SWAPS citizen science projects, and also on this mutual learning exercise that we are currently carrying out with the different member states and the Commission. So I work in Science for Change, as Alan was mentioning, and we try to involve citizens in science to improve society, basically. We use citizen science methodologies, co-creation, community engagement, a user-centered bottom-up approach, and also try to embed all the responsible research and innovation dimensions on our research to produce new data, to boost social innovations, to tackling socio-environmental challenges, and also to improve public policies. So as Gabriela was mentioning, citizen science is one of the open science priorities. So I will not go into deep in this, but the Commission, as she also explained, has been supporting citizen science for several years now through the SWAPS calls, but also through the construction of citizen science, through actions together with the Joint Research Center and many others. And also, as Emily was mentioning, there was a specific call in the Green Deal call that you won. And I just want to mention that this was super competitive. So it means that not only the Commission is supporting citizen science, but it's also a huge interest in the side of the practitioners, because 204 proposals were submitted to the citizen science topic. So this means that there is a lot of people willing to increase the work on citizen science, which I think is good news. And you know that we are all interested because with citizen science, we can align science with society, of course, but we can generate new evidence, we can mobilize behavioral changes, we can also encourage transparency and confidence, and we can inform public policies and regulations. So it's a lot of advantages, and it can be applied in any type of research field. So you know that with citizen science, we can also generate new data, complementing existing data sets or generating new ones, or comparing existing with new data sets produced. But I want to highlight, and that's why we are here, that implementing a citizen science project is not easy. There are a lot of challenges that I will go through now. and it's time-consuming and resource-intensive to generate the communities. Interdisciplinarity is key in this regard, and there are still several barriers to implementation that I will describe a little bit in a minute. Also, there are different ways of implementing citizen science. First, we have the different levels of engagement of the citizens, as you probably know, and this is one of the first decisions that you need to make when you decide to launch a new citizen science project, how you want to engage citizens at the level of the crowdsourcing, for example, so citizens act as censor, or you want to go up the engagement ladder and involve citizens in all, for example, phases of the research using, for example, the extreme citizen science model, as you can see in the picture. So this is one of the first decisions, one of the first barriers and challenges for the projects, how we engage citizens. And of course, the deeper you want to make this engagement happen, the more challenging and the more time consuming and the more efforts you need to realize. So in the past, during the SWAPS call, with all the SWAPS project coordinators working on citizen science, we already did some webinars and cluster events so that we started to identify the main challenges in citizen science projects. And these were the categories where we placed these challenges. First one was citizen engagement. Then we have challenges on data quality, also on demonstrating the impacts, the different impacts that the project can have. Also in relation to sustainability, once you start your project and then it finishes, then what? And also in terms of the involvement of academic scientists and also in terms of recognition. So I will go one by one explaining you the conclusions that we come to during these cluster events with the citizen science projects approved under Horizon 2020, and also some new evidences that we were collected with the member states during the mutual learning exercise that we are currently running. So first of all, for citizen engagement, the main challenges, of course, is when you start, you need to increase or create your community to have participants, because without participants, we don't have anything, we don't have data, we don't have project. And also when you have them, then you need to identify strategies to maintain this participation. Also, you need to take into account other barriers such as gender issues or ethnic minorities, language barriers, for example, that may prevent engagement. And also, it's really challenging if you want to involve communities or citizens in risk of social exclusion, for example. You need to really understand very well the context and identify engagement strategies that are specific for those communities that you are targeting. You also need to define the role, in which phases of the research process you want to engage your citizens, and also start cooperations, for example, with local organizations to move from top-down approaches to bottom-up approaches, so you can also work with the communities more in depth and also motivate them, since these motivation mechanisms are key to achieve this engagement. So you need to provide continuous feedback to your citizens, you need to share relevant knowledge to them. Okay, you need to also provide access to the information generated. You can use strategies such as gamification or entertainment. Also working in a matter of their concern is a good way to motivate them. And also working together with existing communities or connecting with local events. So some of the questions that you can ask yourself when you are starting your citizen science project in relation to citizen engagement are, of course, you need to define the communities that you are targeting and define these motivations that I was just mentioning, how to keep this participation active, if you would like to use rewarding mechanisms or not, what do citizens can get from the project, for example, also take into account other aspects such as gender, balance, or these language barriers that you may have. Also try to connect your project with a local concern, so that engagement can be more successful. And check if you can connect with places, for example, schools, libraries, or neighbor associations that can boost your participation. And these are mainly things that you can do to increase engagement, such as create this fun or some people also appreciate learning or interacting directly with scientists, etc. Share the knowledge, well, work on this feeling of belonging to a community or appeal or create reward systems or building trust in general to raise these motivations. More things in relation to data quality, the main challenges are that mechanisms to validate data are costly. Usually data is dispersed and difficult to access, and also sharing between projects is still a challenge. So basically here, what you need to think is how you can increase the quality of your data, how can you train your participants so that you guarantee that this data is valid, is for your project. Also in connection with open science, you can produce fair data, like findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, and check if you can connect with existing data repositories, or if you mean your data to be used officially, for example, by environmental authorities, then check with them first before you establish your database base, how they need this data so that at the end it's useful. Other things that you can do is also check for pre-existing tools, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Connect with similar projects, organize training workshops with the citizens, for example, and also create new visualizations, for example, so to make the data understandable and be replicable in other contexts. So other challenge, very important one, is the demonstrating impact. Since it is quite difficult sometimes to define indicators that are useful for your project and also that can be measured at the adequate level, so at the local or regional, national or European level, the level that you need. Also, you need to define the areas because you can have different types of impacts in your project. So you can have scientific impact, but also social or economic, environmental or policy impacts. So you need to select and prioritize your area of impact. Think if you want one or more impact dimension and establish your strategies. Just for your reference, there are 2H 2020 projects that created very nice impact evaluation frameworks that can be useful for you, the Action Project and the Mix project. And also it is quite necessary here to work in an interdisciplinary team because you need to cover different aspects to achieve your impacts. And especially in relation to the policy impacts, you need to be aware that they come late in the project. So if you want to measure them, you need to take into account that probably you will not be able to measure maybe after the end of the project. And you really need to prepare your advocacy strategy well in advance so that you can pave the way and then achieve these policy impacts. Also for your reference, there are some policy briefs here that may be useful for you to reach your stakeholders and boost all these type of impacts. Then another challenge, of course, is sustainability. After the end of the project, usually due to lack of resources, also related to maintaining the engagement of your community, also to upscale and replicate your project. So you also, it's quite nice if you start thinking on this at the very beginning so that you can define exploitation plans, for example, think if your project is replicable at a different geography or maybe a different scale. You can plan your legacy and also maybe define new business models so that you can increase also the funding for your project after its end. And also, for example, if you need to maintain the tools you are using for data collection, this is also a challenge. And probably you would need to look for additional funding on this regard. And finally,
Rosa, we're about 2 or 3 minutes, but you're doing fine. Thank you, Rosa.
I know. I have 2 more barriers, but I will go very quick because they are totally related. The first one is the engagement of scientists, of academic scientists in citizen science projects, because usually when we want to do that, we don't realize that this is like a field of mushrooms. We want to do a citizen science project, but then all these things that I just mentioned start to grow up, and it's quite challenging. And also, you need to work in an interdisciplinary team, and there are maybe no incentives or also a lack of career recognition to enroll in this huge adventure, let's say, that it's citizen science. So the advice here is that don't be alone, try to create this team, integrate the social sciences into your project so that you can properly engage with citizens, and also especially if you look for policy impact, for example, also communications are key, so you would need to engage also with a communication team and engage also with other projects. There is a European platform on citizen science that I will show you in a second that you can also connect with. And also the scientific recognition at the end, what it needs, even though we are seeing all this growing support to citizen science, this usually requires institutional changes in the academic institutions so that it can increase the recognition to the practitioners, and we are all, it makes our life easier, let's say. And finally, just to let you know that under the new calls, there is a new project funded that is the continuation of EU Citizen Science. It's called European Citizen Science. It just started in September, so it's has just born. But it continues the work from the previous project. So we will be running in the next 4 years a lot of activities related to training, mutual learning, datathons, hackathons, etc., that can be of interest to you. So I encourage you to register in the EU Citizen Science platform and engage with that. And that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Rosa. Sorry to rush, but as everyone listening can hear, there's a wealth of knowledge and expertise and wisdom behind each one of Rosa's bullet points. So it's really great that we'll have the chance to share them. And thank you also to people who are using the chat. I could see a few comments starting to arise, including making links to relevant material. So please do that. If one of the speakers sparks off something, perhaps something you want to draw to everyone's attention, please use the chat, and we'll be particularly drawing on that after our next round. So now we move on. There's the program, and you can see we're already running very tight on the program, but I'm doing my best to hold on to the Q&A, even if it doesn't take place precisely at 15:45. But now we're going to move to 3 pitch presentations, and I'm going to ask each pitch presenter to keep to 10 minutes so that we don't lose too much time as we and lose time for discussion. And the first pitch presentation, it's already up on the screen, is Alessandro Caforio, Dieter Burmeister, and not Dieter Burmeister, but Luis. And there are 3 presentations. One is by Alessandro Caforio, one is by Alain Jalili, and the other is by Luis Navate. So now we're going to take each one of those 3. I was racing ahead there, Alessandro. And we'll turn first of all to Alessandro and his group of presenters. I'm not sure, Alessandro, if you're sharing the screen. Oh, there it is. And I think, Alessandro, there were 3 presenters. That's where I was racing before. Yourself and Dieter Burmeister from the Danish Board of Technology, the Teknologirådet, and Jaume, I'm sorry about that, Targa, who is an environmental consultant at 4NSfera Innova, who's specializing in working on citizen science projects. So over to you all to say something about GreenScent. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, all of you, and also previous presenters, because they provided a lot of useful information also for our project. I will be very brief. Again, I'm Alessandro Caforio from Nettuno University, coordinator of GreenScent project, one of the projects funded under that 10.3 call previously mentioned. Next slide, please. I will just introduce the project. Main objective of GreenScent is to develop, validate a competence framework covering the 8 Green Deal focus area, involving citizens, and in particular young citizens across Europe. We are 15 partners from 10 countries, including schools, universities, and we will validate and demonstrate and try to gather feedback about this framework through demonstrators, so participatory activities, we foresaw 9 different demonstrators, and now with me are 2 representatives from 2 different of those demonstrators. The idea is to both verify the framework and also understand if these learning by doing, participatory, citizen science activities will provide to the participant not just more competence or more knowledge about some topic, but also act as a trigger for a behavioral change toward a more pro-environmental behavior. I'm giving the floor to Ditte, and then Jaume will take the floor. They are going to present 2 different demonstrators in the bouquet of demonstrators of GreenCent. And please, Ditte, I will shut my microphone now.
Okay, then you need to jump to my slides, but
please, I'm not controlling the slides, Ditte, so when you need to move on, please say next slide and the presenter will move it. Thank you.
I think it's Jaume first, actually, because this is his demonstrator.
Okay.
Okay, no worries. I'll be quick and we'll just be very fast here. So one of the demonstration we have in GreenCent is the participation of and citizen science with the topic of air pollution and air monitoring. We will be demonstrating and testing a way of empowering children to monitor air quality around their schools with several aims of it. One is to raise awareness, make them participant of the measuring of air pollution around the schools, but also empowering them to propose actions and initiate actions around the schools and the local area to improve air pollution. Next slide. So by empowering them into the monitoring first, setting up and choosing where to monitor the air pollution, it gives them a sense of participation, but also it gives them a focus on then trying to improve the air quality in the areas that they have chosen to monitor. And one step beyond is actually propose actions for the school itself, but also for the local authority to improve the air pollution around their locations. So that's one of the demonstration of the project.
Next slide, I guess.
Yeah, next one.
Okay, I'm Ditte from the Danish Board of Technology, and we are organizing these 4 youth design assemblies where we engage with 56 young people from 7 countries around Europe, between 15 and 25 years of age. They meet online every second month, or at least they will, and will meet face-to-face next fall. Their role are to bring pupils and students' perspective into account and to collaborate with the researchers in the in GreenCent to formulate the GreenCent competence framework and pilots. So we are sure it's relevant for the young people who are meeting that framework later on in their school life. By doing so, we believe that it will be relevant. They will validate the Green Comp. We will raise the awareness of the Green Deal, and we will hopefully engage them also to act, because the Green Deal is all about the green transition of our societies. That was the opportunities. The next slide, please. And the barriers are yet to be discovered, but as Rose said, we are suspecting that motivation and engaging people for over several years will be a challenge. Especially young people are fed up with online meetings after years of Corona education. So our strategy is to make it fun and as interactive as possible, but we hope to keep that on. And that is it. In the end, they will come with a recommendation for the researchers on the framework. Over and out.
Thank you. Is it indeed? Thank you so much. Not only was that perfectly to time, there was also a lot of content there. So thank you very much to Alessandro, to Dieter and Jaume for GreenSense, Smart Citizen Education for a Green Future. And already we're moving on. And next we have Arlind Jalili, and he is an accredited Prince2 project manager. Arlind, I don't really know what a Prince2 project manager is. Perhaps you could tell us that. But it sounds impressive, working at the Collaborating Center on Sustainable Consumption and Production. And as you can already see on the screen, it's a very nice PowerPoint, Arlind. It's empowering change makers to shape a good life for all. So over to you, Arlind.
Thanks a lot, Alan, for the introduction. And a Prince2 is basically just a project management certification that allows you to get recognized by all institutions on your skills regarding project management. Yes, I'm happy to be here today and to present the PS Lifestyle Citizen Science Labs. However, before that, just a few words on the PS Lifestyle project itself. So Paul, if you can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so the PS Lifestyle project aims at closing the gap between climate awareness and individual actions. You cannot see me. It shows that my camera is on. Can you see me now?
Now we can.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, so the PS Lifestyle project aims at closing the gap between climate awareness and individual actions by engaging citizens to take a more active role and also become endorsers of more sustainable lifestyles. We are trying to do this by developing the PSL digital tool that is a consumption-based carbon footprint calculator that on the one hand allows people to measure the carbon footprint of their lifestyles by answering a lifestyle test, but on the other hand also to help them to diminish or to reduce that set carbon footprint by offering them a set of actions that they could undertake in their lifestyles in order to change something, and then that could contribute towards the diminishment of that carbon footprint. Through the application, which is quite important, through the digital tool, which is very important, the citizens will also be able to keep track of their progress, but also to tell us about the challenges and the opportunities they have faced while implementing those actions or the new lifestyle plans. The tool is based on a lifestyle test that was initially developed by the project coordinator Citra back in 2017. And through the PS Lifestyle project, we want to further contextualize it and to develop it. So basically to localize the versions and to align it with the realities with the different European realities. In the case of the PS Lifestyle project, we are working with 8 pilot areas or pilot countries, those being Portugal, Finland, Estonia, Germany, Greece, Turkey, Slovenia, and Italy. And this localization of the tool will happen exactly with the PS Lifestyle Citizen Science Labs. So that would be the first stage of the project. In the second stage of the project, once the PSL tool has been fully developed, we want to go large scale and to sort of disseminate the tool throughout all the pilot areas, but also beyond, and to generate a good amount of users, but also to generate data that would be necessary, and also that is the end goal of this project. And lastly, at the very end, in the last stage of the project, we want to work with societal catalysts, those being policymakers, businesses, civil society organizations, and researchers. So we are able to develop solutions for making sustainable lifestyles a reality based on the collected data from citizens. Next slide, please. With that brief introduction to the PS Lifestyle project, now I'll just move into the PS Lifestyle Citizen Science Labs. That is also the main focus of this presentation. Next, please, Paul. Yeah, so the PS Lifestyle Citizen Science Labs aim to engage European citizens to co-create together and shape visions of a good and sustainable life, but also to design solutions that would make that sort of good life within planetary boundaries a reality. Throughout 6 meetings or workshops that are clustered in 3 lab iterations, as can be seen in this slide, people participating in the labs will have the opportunity to discuss foremost about challenges that they face in their cities, in their regions, generally challenges in the general context, but also sustainability ones across 4 main areas, such as food, mobility, housing, and general consumption. And once these challenges have been identified, then we will turn to speak about solutions that we could undertake in order to sort of overcome those challenges. After the solutions exchanges, then we'll move on to discuss barriers that could inhibit the uptake of such solutions, but also opportunities that could accelerate their wider rollout. And finally, the lab journey will end with a discussion on key recommendations or pathways for making the visions of sustainable lifestyles a reality. And those recommendations will be targeting the different key actors, as mentioned before, and can be various in nature, such as economic, political, technological, etc. All of this output or the exchanges with the participants will feed directly into the content of the PSL digital tool. However, beyond the content exchange, we also want to discuss with citizens the functions and the features of the PSL digital tool. So in the end, we have one final product that sort of reflects the realities of people, but also their needs and expectations in an attempt to increase its usage overall. In the next part, I'll be speaking about some of the challenges and success factors that we have encountered while implementing the labs overall. But just in general, I want to say that the labs have been quite well perceived by citizens across these countries, and we're happy with the process so far. Paul, if you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so speaking about challenges, we realized that when it comes to recruiting participants, the pandemic has made it slightly difficult or has reduced a bit the appetite of citizens to participate in such events. It can be, of course, a fear of being in one room with other people who basically are strangers, or we might just want to spend our time in social activities, given the restrictions that we've had. But generally, there was this slight problem of enticing people to join the labs. Then, because the project wants to be quite diverse in terms of the people that we want to engage, but also later on in the learnings that we want to generate to have them as diverse, as inclusive as possible, we wanted to talk to people from all demographic groups. However, it was a bit difficult in here because especially when it comes to reaching out to people from the lower socioeconomic ones, because participating in such events or just having the topic of sustainability in front of them was not the highest in their agenda or the activities. And also we realized that people that are not driven by sustainability values were a bit more difficult to reach out. In addition, since most of the labs were taking place in urban areas, reaching out to people from rural ones and bringing them on board was also a logistical issue. The last 2 points in here, they're not challenges per se, but mostly just interesting observations. We try to design the labs in a way that will mimic the people's or the user's journey of the PSL digital tool. So first, we want to discuss challenges in the context of lifestyle tests and solutions, barriers, opportunities, etc. But we realized while exchanging with citizens that they were a bit impatient about the future plans. So whenever they were discussing issues, they wanted to discuss also opportunities immediately, etc. And we tried to slow down the pace by sort of highlighting the entire journey or the entire process, so they could also be reassured that we will be able to discuss all the topics they want to also touch upon. And then also another interesting observation was that the moment that they received their first results of their carbon footprints, and also when benchmarked to for example, to the very ambitious 1.5 degree target, the immediate feeling was the immediate reaction by the participants were feeling of hopelessness. So basically the fact that, we will not be able to achieve those targets. However, we also try to exemplify that there are solutions about this and try to calm down and to also bring them on board about the process and to reassure that we will be able to also meet those targets if we all work together in these processes. In terms of successes, it was a common point across all pilot areas that people were quite excited about the possibility of measuring their environmental impact by also tracing it to specific behaviors. And we are also quite happy about it because this is also the purpose of the PSL digital tool. So to measure carbon footprint by also identifying the specific behaviors that relate or that lead to that set carbon footprint. In terms of recruiting participants, a success factor was the idea of collaborating with local organizations that are operating in the surroundings. For example, whether this would be social, environmental, but any other organization, just like a sports club, would be sufficient to sort of reach out to various people from various demographic groups. And also a good success factor was the collaboration with municipalities from those pilot cities because of their credibility and outreach potential. Then having tangible incentives was also a good success factor in recruiting people, but also maintaining their engagement. And this can be very simple as having a get-together at the end of each workshop or meeting, but also trying new cool products such as e-bikes, participating in a cool showcase together. So basically something small, but just entices people to sort of continue their engagement with the process. About the recruitment of people, we deployed a diverse communication strategy that included diverse formats, but also different distribution channels. In terms of formats, we relied on flyers, postcards, visual banners for social media. And in terms of distribution channels, we tried to, of course, distribute it through the social media ones, like the traditional Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But also we tried to be present where our target group was, such as university campuses, the organizations that I just talked about, but also just simply placing these flyers or postcards in a supermarket notice board. Then we also knew it beforehand that people do not always have sustainability very high in their agenda. So we tried to develop the storyline a bit more broader into concept. So starting from their local realities and needs and general challenges, and then just connect those to the topic of sustainability in a hope to bring on board a diverse group also, not only the green oriented people or those that have green values already in their lifestyles. And finally, a success factor was sharing of the ownership of the process, because of course we didn't want to have the participant only as passive receivers of the content or the process. We wanted them to co-create and shape it with us in order to entice their participation. And we did this by embedding mechanisms of feedback and then also accounting for such feedback or considering it when designing the upcoming meetings. In a very nutshell and very quickly, this was about the PS Lifestyle Citizen Science Labs. They're still running, so I'm sure we'll collect more insights and learnings and happy to share those in an upcoming event. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those later on, and feel free to reach out for questions or ideas of collaboration. Thanks a lot for your attention. Back to you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Arlind. Again, we've had so much content in the last hour with so many really great presentations. So we're going to have one more pitch presentation from Green Deal Coal Projects representatives on the main challenges and barriers. But could I also, before I introduce Lewis, just encourage you to use the chat. I can see some messages are up there, because very shortly we'll go into discussion mode. And if you want to get ahead of the queue, then please do put something up in chat. I can see there's, last time I looked, over 100 participants. So we're very aware that there's a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge in the audience here. So please share that with us. Or if you'd like to ask, as Arlind just said, if you'd like to ask questions generally or of particular presenters in 10 minutes or so, is the opportunity to do that. So now we turn to the third of the pitch presentations from Green Deal Coal Project presentations. And this time it's Luis Navate. As you can see there, he's from the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. He's a full professor there, and he's director of the Photovoltaic System Research Group at the Solar Energy Institute. And I'm interested, Lewis, that you say in the brief bio, you say, where the development of tools for citizen research was a key element for the success of the project. So I really look forward to hearing about the connection of photovoltaic systems and citizen research. But over to you now, Lewis.
Thank you very much, Alan. So let's go to the content. Next slide, please. The Aurora objective is to show how we can transform a social community into a citizen science hub. In our case, we want to transform the university communities in several countries in Europe into citizen science hubs regarding the European Green Deal, in particular regarding the energy goals of this European Green Deal. How we can do that? Next slide, please. We are trying to do this transformation with the constitution of renewable energy communities. Next slide, please. We want to mobilize 7,000 citizens to research on the nexus energy behavior, climate change mitigation. So for that, we are going to upgrade our university communities into local energy communities by 5 demonstrators involving 7,000 people. For that, we are going to do joint micro investments in photovoltaic systems in the roof of our universities. So we want with these photovoltaic systems to produce and to share our own energy and to use these shared PV systems as drivers for the citizen research hubs. So apart from taking data from this PV system production, we want to involve the energy community participants in monitoring their energy habits, their energy consumptions, not only in the university, but in their real life. For that, we want to propose a set of actions for training, for collecting data, for the assessment of this data, for some hands-on activities in order to promote the behavioral change related with the energy consumption of these participants. Next slide, please. In order to analyze the drivers and barriers for these citizen science hubs and for these renewable energy communities, first we have used as main drivers the constitution of these renewable energy communities. But the main barrier for this main driver is being the inflexibility of public administration. So we have to put together to work public universities with private energy communities, even if they are composed by the teachers, researchers, students, and labor personnel from the universities. So this is the main challenge up to now for our main driver. Next slide, please. In order to know the motivations, the drivers, but also the barriers of the people belonging to our university communities, we have some preliminary results of a survey with a total participation of 166 people. For example, when we ask about the willingness of contributing to the energy transition in the university, more than 70% of the people answered that they feel co-responsible and as part of the solution for the goals of this energy transition. Next slide, please. Following with the motivations, we wanted to know if the return of this microinvestment was important for them. On the left, you can see that this monetary return on investment is a motivation. But if we go to the right, it's also a motivation, the non-monetary benefits to this investment in terms of social and environmental returns. Next slide, please. These social environmental returns are illustrated here. Social benefits on the left side, on the left-hand side, please. Social benefits to the community are important for, please observe that 1 and 2 are the most important, and 6 and 7 are the less important. So for more than 60% of the people, these benefits to the community in terms of fighting against energy poverty, of providing energy for green mobility, are very important. In the right-hand side, you can see that the environmental benefits in terms of reducing the carbon footprint is very important for the large majority of the people who answered the survey. Next slide, please. Following with the social and environmental return, we got very interesting answer related with that for more than 50% to act in my community was very important. And this is important for policy actions in the right-hand side. The challenge of changing the rules of our traditional electricity system was also very important for a large majority. Next slide, please. Let's go to the potential barriers. It was important, as you can see in these figures, to know very well the financial implications and also the legal implications of participating in the energy community. And next slide, please. And it's also very important that the leaders of my community, in this case, the leaders of our universities, show a strong and continuous support to this initiative. Finally, to get the support and the help of technical and legal experts was felt also as a key point to continue with this experience. And I think this is all, Alan, from my side.
Gracias. Thank you so much, Luis. That was really excellent. And again, lots of ideas. So I promised you right back at 2:30, it was only 1 hour, 15 minutes ago, that there would be the chance for Q&A, for open discussion, especially focusing on main challenges, barriers, potential mitigation strategies, and good practices. So please, if you have any questions or comments, use the chat. And that could also be a question to any one of our speakers, Gabriela or Rosa or Alessandro, Dieter, Jaume, Arlind, or Lewis. So if you have a direct question, that's okay too. And while you're thinking about that and drawing a breath, because there was a lot of information there, I wanted to ask the speakers, that's all 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 of you, but you don't all have to answer. If you had one wish concerning the future development of citizen science, if you had one wish of something you would like that would help develop citizen science further, what would that wish be? What would you wish for if you could have one thing regarding the future growth and development of citizen science? Rosa, what would your wish be? I can see you in the screen.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. I have a big wish. Probably you already know what it is, but for me, I think that it's 2020 was a time where we were developing quite a lot of projects in relation to citizen science. Also at the national level, we have a lot of successful examples now. We just seen 3 examples of ongoing projects that can create a lot of impact. So my wish would be that we stop making pilots and the authorities, the public, the environmental authorities, public authorities, anyone that can really use the results to change things, to make these changes and maybe contribute to the Green Deal or to other policies, uptake officially the citizen science project as another way of monitoring, regular monitoring. And in the same way that we are supporting, for example, monitoring stations for air pollution or climate change, we have for communities of citizens reporting regularly so that we can have this continuous monitoring officially through citizen science at the local level. That would be my dream.
Thank you, Rosa. Does someone else want to give us a wish about what they would like? Alessandra, what would you wish for?
Well, while Rosa was more on the policy listening and impact level, I was thinking just about when it comes to data collection, to start developing also an easy but shared protocol among researchers in order to promote interoperability of the data collected, so that these fantastic projects can generate more impact, because all the data collected can be shared across the project, the platform. If we start thinking about a sort of XML dialect or something like that to tag the data, to develop a common standard, when it comes to data collection and processing, it can help these local, usually, or anyway, limited experiences that provide a lot of results to become something more systemic. When it comes to discussion and to elaboration, of course, we cannot expect easy to share standards, but when we speak about data, probably we can agree with some time about some specific fields to be shared across projects.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to comment? Does anyone else want to make a wish? In that case, while you're thinking about it, so Alan, go on, go for it, please, and then Dieter. Alan first.
Oh, sorry.
My wish would have been, because every time that we talk to people, the number one reasoning for inaction is that we're not able to do something. We're not able to achieve. It's a big task, and someone else should do it. And sometimes the someone else is always the policymakers or the businesses. So in this case, in order for to promote the citizen science and its potential, I would have loved to see like a policy, because I'm also a big endorser of policymakers regulating our day-to-day lives. I would love to see a policy that sort of reflects what citizens have told us. A clear example of a policy. Let's say you have told us this, and we have developed this, and this is the power that you can have in order to sort of change something in your society and your lives for the better. And of course, the bolder, the better, because I think it's time also to sort of introduce bolder policies that can propel the sustainability development agenda to a higher level, also considering the 1.5-degree target that we have in front of us to achieve.
Thank you. Dieter, and then Rosa, and I can see some questions are appearing in the chat. Keep doing that, because we'll turn to the chat after we've heard from Dieter and Rosa. Dieter.
It was just much in line with Arlene, like a hope for citizen science get to be agenda setting and policy moving. So no need to repeat.
Thank you, Dieter. Rosa.
Yes, I would like to provide an example that I'm very proud of, because I was coordinating the DNOSIS project, which was on citizen science and odor monitoring. And since odor pollution is not recognized as a pollutant and there is no common European framework for regulating it, the policy aspect in the project was really important. So we were running a lot of advocacy actions, and the project ended with an event in the European Parliament, just advocating for that, for the recognition of odor pollution, and also of citizen science as a valid methodology to monitor odor pollution, as we have validated during the course of the project. And we invited the Committee of the Regions and many other actors, the Commission, DG, RTD, and also the environmental part, etc. And it ended, so we didn't know anything, like now what? And Some months later, we received an email from the organizers of the event saying that the Committee of the Regions were providing an amendment to the Zero Pollution Action Plan, which is in fact part of the Green Deal. So it's quite relevant for this webinar. And we managed to introduce a paragraph there. So it is recognized the importance of the monitoring of odor pollution for the protection of the European citizens and creating common regulatory frameworks, and also the use of citizen science to do this. So I think this paragraph, I don't know what will happen now. It's there, it's part of the Green Deal, so citizen science is in there. So I hope that it's beneficial for the whole community that are doing citizen science.
Thank you, Rosa. I'm now looking at the chat and I can see Ivona, you've got a question. Ivona, would you like to turn your camera on and join us? Perhaps you could ask the question there. So hi, Ivona, now we can see you.
Hi,
Yeah.
yes, with pleasure. I've seen in few of your slides you were measuring the changes of behavior to achieve certain environmental objectives. And I was just curious how you go about monitoring this change, if you could briefly. I know that's not an easy question. I mean, how to measure behavioral change, but I was just wondering if you had some thoughts to share. Thanks a lot.
And Ivona, was your question directed to anyone in particular or across? Was there a particular speaker that caught your attention in that regard?
It's more a question to all. I think you will all have that in your projects, but yeah, whoever wants to jump. Thanks.
Thank you, Ivona. Who would like to have a go at that difficult question of measuring behavioral change? Alessandro is brave.
Thank you. Well, I mentioned it, so I need to start first, probably. One of the research ideas, and also something suggested between the lines of the call we were addressing with our proposal with Greensent, was to try to differentiate among the acquisition of knowledge that's somehow measurable, so you can test about it, and the actual impact on the behavior of the participants involved in the research. Another assumption was that the younger, the better. So that the young children, the young students across Europe, bring with them a sort of multiplier effects, because if we have an impact on them, they will have other impacts on their other students in their classes or their friends outside the school, but also on their parents. And we know how children can make a difference on the behavior of their parents usually. How to measure? We developed and we started testing and validating and now refining, and we will adopt this research protocol in the next year during the pilots, so during the demonstrator, with a pre and post testing. So we will, before introducing the project and the demonstrator, of course, we will speak in general about the project, the activities, also to give some ideas to the parents or to the participant, if in the correct age, what they will be asked to do. But before presenting any sort of stimulus, they will be asked to fill in a test. This test is a mix of existing dimension already validated about motivation, affective and emotion toward environmental pro-societal behaviors. And we added also another thing, adopting the implicit association testing standard developed by Harvard and used in several contexts. They already developed a sort of ecological scale. This implicit association testing protocol is going to measure, has the ambition to measure, but anyway, it's validated, not just the rational part of what we can say, but measuring also the number of errors, let's say, and the response time. It has the ambition to measure the implicit attitude of a participant toward a specific behavior. And the test is not answering to a scale from -3 to +3, but you have to choose to keys on your keyboard, I or E, and the stimuli are in several batteries, both with cognitive dissonance. So in some cases you have a picture positive for the environment or a word in general negative and you have to press I, or a picture negative for the environment or a word positive in general and you have to press E, or vice versa, not homogeneous stimuli, picture, positive picture and word, negative picture and word. In 6 batteries alternate, and the timing and the number of errors in the responses correlated to the answer that we already had in the normal Likert scale provide both a baseline and then we can measure the success of the participatory activity in changing the implicit attitude of the participant toward the pro-environmental behavior. This is the research idea.
Thank you, Alessandro. And we could keep discussing this, but I'm keen to bring in some other questions. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ivona, too. I wanted to go back to something in the chat from Martina van Poppel, which I find very interesting, about the bottom-up and top-down approach. Martina, could you possibly, there you are, could you possibly say, because it seems like an interesting debate across all the presentations?
Well, yes, I am, let's say, I work for VITO, the Flemish Institute for Technological Research, and I'm involved in the RI Urbans project, where we also look at how, how we can use citizens to collect data and to help for better spatial resolution of air quality maps. The reason why I raise this is that I also added a comment on, yes, certainly I agree that this multidisciplinary teams are really needed. Sometimes I see one side, and I have to admit I'm also a scientist in the thing of air quality. I see these guys saying, okay, it has to be very accurate, and then the other side, it's okay, we have to just make people aware and we just do something. And I think a lot of very useful data will be somewhere in between. And I think sometimes we say, okay, for citizen science, we don't have to be, it cannot be too much top down because we have to let them think together. And I really agree on this, but we have some experience in a project or a case we did in Mechelen in Belgium. It was part of the Ground Truth 2.0 project. And there we started with people and say, okay, think about what are the issues in the city, and they really contributed to this. But then if it came on the topic of, okay, how are we going to measure this, then it took a lot of time. And then we said, okay, maybe you can do it this way, because we as scientists, we know how you can do very good measurements. And then it started working, and they really collect data. But that's what I mean. It's not always just bottom up and let them do and let them. Sometimes you really need to help and so, and that's a bit the reason why I commented on this. And I also think sometimes you can really from top down, you can say, okay, this is a question I have and I need a lot of data and I would like to involve citizens. Okay, it's not very high level citizen science, but I think this also might be useful. So yeah, that was just a bit an explanation of my comment on and this is also related to the fact that the data will be then, as with the last point that was raised on the scientific recognition. Sometimes it really, we always have to think, okay, what's it needs to be fit for purpose. Okay, what is the purpose? Is it just education, or is it really having a very good dense map of the air quality, or do we need this data for let's say epidemiology? So yeah, it's not one fit for all, but that's just my comment on this.
And in a way, Martina, you've already started to answer your question when you say it's not one fit for all. That implies a lot of contextuality and difference. But would anyone of the speakers, perhaps Lewis, like to comment on this top-down, bottom-up issue? Are you a bottom-up person or a top-down person or a little bit of both?
We think in our project that we need both. We need, in order to achieve the 2030 goals regarding energy transition, we need both. We need structural measures, top down, but if we finally want to achieve the goals related with the reduction of CO2 emissions, we need citizens proposing bottom-up actions and doing changes in their behaviors related with the energy consumption. So we need both. And I agree, totally agree with Martin, related with the data collection. It depends on the final use of this data. So, but I think we should combine both things. We should combine good sensors in order to have accurate measurements, but and to make these databases available in open repositories and with the enough quality for the different uses. And then we have to do the effort to transform this data in information for the citizens, information that lead them to make these changes. For example, regarding the measuring the impact of these citizen research activities. In this second use of the data, we are producing some labels in reducing the carbon footprint of the people participating in our Citizen Research Hub, just to give a clear information to them about their progress to finally being near zero emission citizens. So it's not, for that we don't need very accurate measurements, but we want to inform in a clear way about the progress of these persons trying to do behavioral changes. So I agree with PS Lifestyle Project that be careful with these labels, because if they are unachievable, we produce hope. We produce hopelessness. But if we adjust quite well these labels, we can produce motivation to people. So, but we need also, from the point of view as researchers, we need accurate data. So both things, we should work in both lines, from my opinion.
Thank you, Luz. There's a particular question from Thomas about the 2023 calls relating to Citizen Science Open, and is there a draft work package, I guess, is our work program, WP. Gabriella, can you comment on that question about the 2023 calls in response to Thomas?
Yes.
Oh, we can't hear you, Gabriella.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the new work program 23-24 for the Wideera part is has been drafted and is in the internal discussion in the Commission, and we expect to publish at the end of November.
Perfect, Gabrielle. I just wanted to thank you so much for clarifying that one. Christine, you've got a question about a best practice framework. Could you perhaps join us and share your video? What are you thinking about there? Is Christine Liang here?
Hi there.
Yes, hi.
Sorry, just trying to get my video working.
Well, we can hear you fine. There you are. Hi.
Hello, I'm Christine. I'm currently working on a citizen science project measuring microplastics in fresh waterways in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Currently, we don't have a citizen science project or citizen science quality assurance framework for New Zealand, but our Crown Research Institute, NIWA, around water research is establishing one. So I'm not sure if these wonderful projects in Europe perhaps are already following a best practice for this sort of thing.
Superb. Who would like to come in on the question of best practice? Rosa, is that something the European Citizen Science Association has worked on, because you're a member of the board of directors there?
Yeah. I think when this type of question is raised, I always mention the same. I think that we cannot forget that we are doing science when we are doing citizen science. So at the end of the day, what we have is a data set, and you use the validation mechanisms or the data assurance mechanisms that you regularly use for other types of data sets. The only difference that you can make is that the pre-collecting data phase, for example, that you can train your citizens to produce better quality data. And you can also have workshops with them to really read the data, understand the data, and produce it in a way that is valid or fit for purpose for what you are expecting in relation to the research. But then when you got the data at the end, it's more or less the same as in any other regular science project.
Thank you, Rosa. Does anyone else want to comment on that? Arlind, what does best practice mean to you in terms of your science? Just to throw it right at you.
Yeah, that's a very difficult question and beyond any of the capabilities of mine to answer. But when thinking about that, I sort of, my immediate intuition or thought was that the practitioners or the people, the scientists that are involved in the project, they could also assure or sort of check that the information that is provided by the citizens is consistent or makes sense. So basically in this sort of project, it is that usually the consortium are comprised by either practitioners in the sense of having a scientific expertise or just having the expertise of the topic in general, and them going through the data and making sense out of it and ensuring that there is some sort of quality in there could be a good way forward. But also another way would be to check it also externally from the project. Of course, the project members might always be biased, but going to other external institutions such as the environmental agencies of the different countries or on a European level could also be one way to assure that the data that we're collecting is actually of good quality. However, as said, I would be relatively young to the topic and would not be able to properly give you a good response. But in case I find out more, I'm happy to sort of share it with the organizers of this webinar, but also put it forward as a research question for the PS Lifestyle project. I'm sorry I couldn't provide more information on this.
But that's a perfect answer.
That's great.
And Christine, are you in New Zealand? We noticed that the curtains are closed behind you. Are you in fact in New Zealand?
Yes, it's currently 3:10 a.m.
Oh, wow. Well, I think you deserve a special award from the European Commission for joining us. That's brilliant. And it shows that the online world has its advantages. We talk a lot about its disadvantages. But thank you very much for joining us, Christine. And thanks for your question. Now, waiting patiently, she was there there she is in the middle of my screen, is Margaret, who is now going to join in. And there will be more time for discussion, a little less time after Margaret's presentation. And Margaret Gold is the citizen science lead within the Open Science Program at Leiden University and coordinator of the Citizen Science Lab. She's also an expert on the mutual learning exercise that we've mentioned a couple of times. Actually, Margaret is a rapporteur on our MLE. And again, I think Margaret, you already made a link in the chat. But if you want, there's plenty more information on the mutual learning exercise. And the whole purpose of that exercise is to share information. And our reports, as they appear, will go up on the the PSF website, the Policy Support Facility website. But Margaret, now you have the word. You've been waiting and listening to the discussion, no doubt, and we're excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Alan. That's a nice introduction. And thank you for inviting me to join you. There's some amazing projects being shared today. I'm learning from all of you. What I wanted to speak with you about, we've got a lovely collection of projects that are all kicking off your ways into the work that you've foreseen for yourselves. Quite a few of you are joining us with some fantastic past projects you've been telling us about, or that you're in the middle of projects that you're working on now. And what I'd like to talk with you about is capturing some of these stories about the impacts and the impacts that you're working on. And there's a whole body of knowledge that's being developed at the moment about the types of impacts that can be described of citizen science initiatives or citizen engagement initiatives, and how you might monitor those, how you might evaluate those. But I'm just going to talk to you about the capturing process. And being in funded projects, especially Horizon funded projects, we have an awful lot of paperwork that we produce. We produce reports, we have our deliverables, we often have policy briefs, sometimes we have a beautiful publication that can come out. And we're sharing this as widely as we can. This is how we're disseminating our knowledge in these typical ways. But when we're looking at the types of impacts that are being realized towards the goals of the Green Deal, a lot of these have a very strong correlation with policy making and decision making to bring about the kinds of changes that we're aiming to inform through the citizen science data. So it's quite easy to get lost in all of the reports that are landing on the desks of policymakers or decision makers, or even for scaling up nationally, reaching the new stakeholders that might take these practices on board to reach more regions, to have an even bigger impact. So part of the art of reaching the right people is also in how you frame it and how you tell your story, and leveraging the art of storytelling. And there's also a whole realm of work about storytelling and how you frame a story, and how you can have a challenge or an arc. But I'm going to leave that aspect of storytelling aside as well. I'm going to bring it right into our world, and I'm going to share with you an example as I tell you about this. So this is a local example here in Leiden, the Plastic Spotter Project. So hearts out to you, all of you that are gathering plastics, micro or macro, and getting them out of our waterways. But right away, you're looking at a typical scientific poster, but there's probably one thing that's really standing out for you, and that is the photo. And to show you a later scientific poster later on in this project, it's got more photos than your typical science poster, but once again, I think you're going to notice a few images that are really standing out in this poster. And if we drill down into these photos, we'll see that two of the things that these two posters are doing very uniquely is, first of all, they're showing you quite clearly the nature of the activity. What's the citizen science, citizen engagement activity? They're giving you a feeling for the volunteers that are engaged in this activity. You're getting a little bit of a picture of the type of impact that's being realized by the activity, because they're showing the types of plastics very clearly sorted by type. And this is a photo of a key moment where a recommendation report is being given by one of the volunteers from the canoes to the local person working for the city of Leiden, who's responsible within her mandate within the city for the concerns like pollution and what kinds of plastics are getting into the water relevant for the businesses that she has in her portfolio. So this is a report in the hands of a policymaker being given by a plastic pickup. So it's a photo showing the policy impact. And this particular project has done beautifully at communicating both its aims and its outcomes and its findings. And what's interesting, in so many of the places that this story has been picked up, such as the Guardian newspaper or the National Geographic Channel, is this photo This is one of the first pieces of COVID litter that this team found, where they could show that the impact that COVID litter was having on nature and wildlife. And it's just a little freshwater fish that swam into the thumb of this COVID glove. And this image has been a powerful image that gets picked up everywhere. Right away, it's telling the story of the problem and the impact of the problem on nature. And paired with the impact of this work on policy and decision making, it becomes a powerful story to tell. So there's some techniques for how you can do this. And I'd like to tell you about a piece of work that I was involved in the We Observe project, which was a Horizon 2020 funded project, a coordination and support action that ended in 2021 with this range of beautiful partners you see on the screen. And just to give you a bit of background, the We Observe project was looking specifically at citizen observatories, which is really an EU term as a particular character of citizen science project, where it has a much more long-term character. So it's community-based environmental monitoring typically, but also public health monitoring. Mariana briefly mentioned Meet May Mechelen as one of the ground truth pilot projects. Local communities getting involved in monitoring activities, where there's not necessarily a beginning and the end to the research, it's an ongoing monitoring activity. And in that project, there were three key challenges that we were looking at that citizen observatories tend to face: the challenges of awareness of citizen science approaches or citizen observatory approaches, and the kinds of value that they can add to decision making, the acceptability of the data or the outcomes or the insights being generated by citizens, and the sustainability of the initiative itself. So not sustainable in the environmental sense, but in the maintaining the ongoing activity sense. And for all three of these, good communication on what's being realized and the impact is definitely key to addressing all three barriers. I've just spoken through that, so I'll just click through those. And the piece of work that I want to share with you that was done within the We Observe project was actually a collaborative piece of work by a wider group of people that engaged with the project throughout the whole lifetime of the project on the topic of impact, realizing impact in citizen science, the impact community of practice. And this was a mix of people that were partners within the project, but people that were doing work where the impact of their work was something they cared about. And we wanted to have a way to help capture these impacts in a way that they could be told more powerfully to address those types of challenges of awareness and acceptability, and the long-term sustaining of the activity, because ongoing funding or new forms of support are part of the keys to the puzzle. And Rosa touched on a lot of these aspects in much greater depth in her presentation earlier. So the two pieces of work that I point you to, once again, drowning in reports, but I point you to these two papers, and I'll share these slides with you so that you have all of these links. One talking about the ways that we can describe impact within citizen science projects to start giving you a sense of how you might approach your own impact monitoring or evaluation work. And then the paper that describes our storytelling approach. And at the heart of the storytelling approach is this instrument. We designed a template, the impact inquiry instrument, just as guidance for the kinds of things that you could be keeping track of throughout your project. And this graphic just gives you a really simple walkthrough of how this instrument works. So first of all, you can think about whether you are using it as a tool during an interview, whether you're using it as somebody within a project and you're just filling in data as you go through your project to make sure that you're keeping track of it, or whether you're going back to something in the past and you're looking for all the information that you can find in the gray literature about that project. You're then looking at the instrument itself, and you're deciding on your goals, how you want to communicate. So who will this story be for? Are you bringing it to a policymaker? Are you bringing it to a local decision maker? Are you bringing it to a funding body to plead for ongoing funding for this initiative? And then you can, using that audience in mind, you can start designing your narrative. Are you writing much more of a narrative story? Is this a policy brief? Is this a poster, or is it a video? You can think about the form that it takes. And these are the basic descriptions. First of all, describing your citizen science initiative. In this project, we had the lens of the Citizen Observatory, so you'll see the term CO as well as CS throughout the instrument. But really basic details, what scale it is it? Is it local? Who are your local stakeholders? What's your own role in the initiative? Are you a project leader or a participant? And some other basic details just to describe what is the initiative itself. And then when describing the problem, to really step back away from our typical scientific lenses for describing the problem, but think much more in the sense of a business case. What's the issue you're trying to solve? What other attempts have been made? How long has this issue been going? There's quite a few questions that will just trigger that kind of thinking for describing what it is you're trying to address. And then guiding you through how you tell the story about the impact. So what changes have you observed? What has resulted because of this? And little prompts at the end to also make sure that you're capturing quotes from participants. And as I illustrated in the case of Plastic Spotter, that you're getting photos, that you're getting great photos of the activity, of the volunteers, a sense of the action and who's engaged. And any key moments where you're realizing an impact, make sure you capture those with photos. And these continuing the questions will guide you deeper into the wider impacts. And perhaps one of the trickiest things when you have a funded project with a given time frame is a lot of the types of impacts we're describing play out over really long periods of time. Especially those of you looking at behavior change. There's some snapshots, kind of before and after snapshots that you might be able to capture within your project, and you're thinking in those terms, how do you capture those? But in many ways, the way our behavior changes over time really plays out over long periods of time. So it's maybe a big intervention you're doing to get people thinking about what is the impact of their own behaviors on the issue at hand. But there's kind of a layering of all this information you get over time that over time leads to bigger and bigger behavior changes. And what I'm getting at is that not all types of impact can be measured within the scope of your project. There'll be things that play out over way longer timescales, or maybe can't be traced causally to something specifically you did. The 10-year-old that came to the public engagement event and got really excited, we're not going to be able to track whether that kid went on to study science or be engaged in science in a future career. But you can describe what they might be, or what we see indications of them having a role in, so that the final wider impacts will guide you through that. And then I'd like to share some additional resources for you as you think about keeping track of these impacts and doing that storytelling. A really amazing resource, and I hope that you give it a good thorough look, is the cookbook, the We Observe cookbook, which provides a lot of guidance at a lot of different stages of citizen science or citizen observatory projects. And there's a whole section on impact in there. I'll skip through these. There's a lot of best practice examples. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of resources. And capturing your impacts is one of those. And then finally, to close, Gabrielle has already done a beautiful introduction, and Rose has touched on it in more detail as well, but reminding you of this mutual learning exercise in citizen science and the repository of reports that you can find at this tiny URL. And that is my presentation about impacts. So I pause here for a moment to see if there's any questions in the room before heading on to the next section of our time together.
Well, I have a question for you, Margaret. There's often a challenge, let's say, and it's implicit in what you say about how to demonstrate impact in a citizen science project. And I guess many of us can feel frustrated at times that the impact measures can seem much narrower than what you're talking about. So how do you deal with that when it's, when you're being asked to give perhaps more quantitative indicators of impact? And have you any experience about presenting impact in a, let's say, a persuasive way, because I know the frustration of feeling something has made a difference, but finding it very difficult to demonstrate that it's.
It
that
can be
that's-
difficult to demonstrate, indeed. And sometimes the temptation is to come up with a metric that's because it's measurable, instead of the metric really getting at the heart of the nature of the impact. Just to give you an example, plug your ears, Gabriela, but when we write our project proposals, we say things about how many people we're going to reach with our work, and we say things like, we're going to have this many followers on Twitter. Well, that's a metric you can measure. So we name that metric because it's something we can measure. But how many people follow us on Twitter is not an indication of engagement. It's not a measure of how much information has been exchanged. So if just staying in the metaphor of Twitter, what you want is a deeper metrics like click-throughs or how many times it's been retweeted or shared. And that still doesn't tell you whether somebody took an action. So somebody can be a fan of something, liking it and sharing it, and it still doesn't necessarily they've made an action. And this is what leads us to sometimes slightly, heavy-handed is too strong a word, but we do something, and before we do it, we ask people, well, did you know about this? And then after we've done it, we say, Nessa, now do you know about this? This kind of before and after measurement, because it's a tool available to us, and it's often not possible to come up with any other kind of mechanism than that to be able to capture what the impact was from that particular intervention. So although on the one hand, we have to have something to show for it, and we're encouraged to quantify, I do encourage people to think about whether it's a false metric simply because it can be measured, or maybe even a vanity metric that just looks great because you've got lots of numbers, lots of people came, that doesn't really measure engagement. But it's a hard one. Yeah.
It is a hard. I think it's a hard one in research projects, but it could possibly be even harder in citizen science projects, where the impact could run in many different directions. Even if it's just to improve the quality of someone's life by feeling empowered, how do you measure a thing like that? Perhaps that's a subject that we will keep discussing. Thank you, Margaret. Now we've got some time. This session is about capturing impact stories, sharing with stakeholders, and scaling up. But I'm thinking of it, there it is, thank you very much, is an open space where anyone can participate or share any experiences. Lena, I think it's from you, sharing some information. Would you like to join us and perhaps tell us what you were talking about? This is Lena Debavaye, but Lena, you can correct my pronunciation if you can join us.
Hello.
Hi.
Another person tackling plastics. Excellent.
Yes.
Yes, hi. I just started with the project, so that I don't really have like best practices yet. But I just wanted to help Christine with the methodology, or just give some inspiration for their project on microplastics that we're also tackling with the Plastic Pirates project. So I just shared it in the chat.
That's perfect. But say something more. I mean, I think many of us know about the Plastic Pirates, but can you say something, Christine, about your involvement? Sorry, not Christine. Could you say some more about your involvement, Lena?
So in Belgium, actually, so Plastic Pirates is a project that started in Germany, and it has spread over Europe. So 10 extra countries are joining in the project, actually. And I'm a bit of the coordinator in Belgium, just to help schools and engage with them to enter in the project and help with us to do research on just plastics and microplastics in streams in their neighborhood. So if a school is located somewhere, then they can just research their stream in the neighborhood. So it's very close and they're very involved in that. So that's fun for them to be able to contribute to science in this way.
Thank you very much for sharing that. It's a very famous citizen science example in Europe, but it's great to know that it's got so much energy there. Gabriella.
Yes, I want just to add about the Plastic Pirates that in the first work program of the mission the work program 22-23 of the mission implementation plan of the Commission, there is a call devoted to upscaling of plastic pirate at European level. So just to let you know.
Great.
This.
Well, Margaret, you're muted.
I spotted a question in the chat as well from Manuela about incentivizing participants. And I'm gonna put it in quite a bold way. I'm going to say you cannot incentivize citizens to carry out science. Not in that frame, but you can find the people that share your passion for a subject or the curiosity for a subject or an enjoyment, people that are attracted to a social gathering and doing something that has value together with others, where it's the camaraderie or maybe the social aspect that's attractive, or students having fun. So that was a really nice, that was a nice example just given by Plastics Pirates for young ages. It's a fun activity. It's a social camaraderie with your classmates or with your peers, and you're doing something that makes a difference. So the motivations actually sit much more in, especially in the context of the Green Deal projects, they're going to sit in the context of what it is you're trying to address. People that are caring about this problem as well and want to play a part in helping to tackle the problem. I think you'll find that's where you're going to find your motivations. And then what you're communicating is you can help tackle this. You can help gather the data that'll help tackle this. You can help address it at the source. You're making them partners.
But thank you, Margaret. Manuela, you asked the question that Margaret's responding to there. Have you found this a particular issue, or has it been a particular challenge? Perhaps you could say more, Manuela.
Yes, hi everybody.
Hi.
Well, I didn't mean incentivize in terms of, monetary terms, was rather on how to actually build more awareness on the possible role of the citizen, and try to inspire each other and be sort of peers in there. No, I haven't tackled any specific challenge because in our project we don't really investigate citizen science per se, but we rather focus more on the liberation mechanism with citizen, but we also want to build a movement on environmental citizen in Europe. So in this sense, I was wondering how, if there are, more other specific points of view on
if I could share an example, one of my favorite examples is the GROW Observatory. So the GROW Observatory is looking at soil moisture and soil health, and they put together a communication channel on Medium, the platform called Medium. And what they emphasized is the people engaged in the project telling their own stories. So they amplified the voices of the participants. And they did a lot of beautiful storytelling, but it was all the people that were participating talking about why they were participating, what their motivation was, and showing what they were doing with the task and showing what they were doing locally. So there was only a little bit of storytelling from the organizers. It was almost entirely from the community engaged with it. And that was really powerful.
But this, Margaret, while you're talking, gets us back to this top-down, bottom-up discussion as well, is to, and I think it's very important because it says something about the role, for example, of policymakers, and there, bless you, we can't hear you, but we can see. Is the job of policymakers to enable citizen science who are already, so to say, incentivized? That's one task. And/or is it to, create a climate where people do feel incentivized in whatever way that's possible? In other words, the job of policy is to encourage citizen science initiative. I suspect that changes a lot according to context. In some of our countries, thinking of the European countries, there is already a lot of bottom-up pressure, so to say, that might be about enabling. But in other contexts where there isn't a tradition of citizen science, in the Netherlands, there is a very strong tradition of citizen science. Yeah, what do you
Yeah, I
think
think
about
that
that?
general
Yeah.
theme of support and enabling, looking for those opportunities to provide a supportive atmosphere. Sometimes some monetary compensation is appropriate, but not an incentive per se. It's probably more that it removes a barrier or recognizes the value of somebody's inputs. But I think the most famous things are coordination support, communication support, offering places for people to gather. These are all things that policymakers and decision makers can offer in kind in many cases, that kind of support. Probably the ask towards them is a much earlier engagement in their processes to open up to inputs and feedback from the groups that they're looking to engage. I think quite a lot of, certainly at the municipal and provincial levels, a lot of people in governmental or municipal roles would tell you that they care very much about working in partnership with local residents, but they find it hard to do. So this is something where us running citizen science projects can provide facilitation support to them.
Mm-hmm. I can just see a comment from Fleur. Rather than me reading it out, Fleur, could you possibly give the kind of core of your comment? It looks very thoughtful at a glance, Fleur.
Hi, yes,
Hi.
Good afternoon. I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah, so I wanted to say wonderful points that are being raised here, and I really agree with most of them. And my point that I was making was just from our experience in the city's health project, where we co-created epidemiological studies with citizens, where concern was really a driver for citizens to really get involved, engaged, or participate in our project. So I was agreeing with your point on, I don't think we can incentivize. I think something drives people to participate or get involved. And in our case, that was concern. But I wanted to say with regards to co-creating or doing citizen science with people, it shouldn't prevent researchers from doing work. I mean, citizens aren't full-time researchers. And I really feel that when we, for example, creating a protocol or study protocol, writing that up, I don't feel that it's wrong for researchers to take that initiative themselves to, after something has been co-identified, co-designed, to write that up on behalf of citizens, because we understand the structures that are needed, the technical jargon that's often required, and that we then, once that is done, again, discuss that in thorough detail just to make sure it's still in line in this co-created process. So that was kind of my 2 cents a little bit.
That's great. And Fleur, where are you based, Fleur, just so we have a feeling?
I am based in the Netherlands, so in Utrecht. Yeah.
Thank you, Fleur.
That's reminding me of an anecdote about a colleague who was doing a piece of participatory research with a group of participants and made a really big effort to invite the participants to join in the writing of an academic paper, and kept getting funny looks from everybody saying, you think that's important, but I don't care. I just want this policy to change. I just want this action to happen. So you go write your paper. If you want to cite me, fine, but I don't need to be an author. That we put value on things that have our own value for our own purposes, that the participants don't necessarily need to or want to be involved in.
And
it's nice to offer.
It's nice, but it reminds us that there are many aspects to citizen science. And personally, I've always thought that was an advantage of citizen science. I know some people like it to fit into a tighter framework, but for me, if citizens can find that useful in terms of understanding everyday life or possibly making some kind of change, if academics can find that helpful for their own purposes, then there are many benefits to that. Jaume, yes, please.
Yes, just very quick note on this. Involving citizens and children, it's very scary at the beginning. But then when you start getting involved with them, you empower them to measure anything, noise, air pollution, to go out and think about the areas where they used to walk to school from home and back and forward, and the park they go to, and they then understand the air quality there. They have the right mind to then start thinking about improving and I get stopped by parents sometimes saying, "What do you tell my child?" I said, "What did I? Nothing." And they stop me and say, "Yes, I'm now having to walk to the school once a week because he was telling me that driving was not good, or we are driving close enough, and then I walk to the school because it's good for the environment, it's good for the local community." And it's hard, but then the benefit it's much more than other active campaigns that you might want to do. And even with it doesn't need to be children, but by teaching parents on the impact, they can measure the air pollution around them, then they will understand. If not, it's data that comes from official sources or data that comes from other sources that they don't understand. But when they measure it and they have the data themselves, and even if it's their child's, the children will have great power to their parents to say, look, it's not good for me, it's not good for the environment, let's just walk, or let's leave 5 minutes earlier and we'll go there and we just walk and talk. This is something that sometimes it's difficult when, from a scientific point of view, to get involved with citizens, because you want to the aim is to write a research paper that needs to be with great quality data, but the behavioral change of Citizen Science Project is amazing.
Thank you very much. If you can make children get out of bed 5 minutes earlier in the morning, that is a major contribution from Citizen Science. So it's a great example. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to have to stop, but I mean, it's nice to be in this situation. We know there's many more questions and a lot more information. And I saw that the chat will be shared, I think, because there are many very useful contributions there. But before we close, I wanted to turn to Marta, who's done a brilliant job of coordinating and keeping everything straight all the way through the process. So huge thanks to you, Marta, and to all your colleagues. But perhaps you'd like to make a few practical points as we start to close.
Yes, thanks, Alan, and thanks to all our speakers for their fantastic contribution, and also to our audience who was extremely active, sharing so many interesting links that, like you said, we will collect and share with all of you this week. I also wanted to draw your attention to the Green Deal Support Office website, which we just launched very recently, and we'll be populating it in weeks to come and in years to come, in fact, because our project runs for another 4 years. And you can, you can visit it to see what we're up to, the future events that we're organizing. One of them specifically will take place on the week of 17th of October. We don't have yet the precise date, but we'll organize another webinar with Green Deal project and external guests on the climate adaptation mission. So we very much welcome you to join that one if it's of interest. We will be also preparing a short article about this webinar, which you can then find on our website, summarizing the discussion and the amazing points that have been raised today. So I just wanted to say again a huge thanks to all of you, and my colleague Paul will also share now in the chat a feedback survey, because we very much want to hear from you, whether you enjoyed this webinar, how we can improve in the future. So please take the 2 minutes it takes to fill in the survey. It helps us a lot to improve for the future. And again, many thanks to our speakers and all of you who stayed with us for this 2 very interesting hours. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, Marta, and thank you to Paul and to all the people at Ecarus and everyone else who's made this happen. I just want to repeat what you said. I want to thank very warmly our participants. I hope you found it interesting. It seemed to me the time went by very quickly, which is always a good sign, and plenty more to discuss. So thank you all for being here, whether it's tea time or breakfast time. It's good of you to take time with us. I really want to thank the speakers, all of them who were impeccable in terms of timing. You actually made my job relatively easy, but also for the amount of information and PowerPoints will be shared. So thanks to all of you for that. And I just want to say that it's such an interesting comment that citizen science has gone past the stage where it used to be debated, you know, was this a good thing or was it a bad thing? We're now into a very mature discussion based on lots of experience where we're weighing up the benefits and the challenges, the opportunities, and sometimes the problems. So we're now into a very reflective discussion, and it helps immensely that so many researchers have looked into this, but also there's been so much practical experience among citizen scientists themselves. So there's much to think about and there's much to develop, but it's very encouraging to see these body of knowledge developing, but also to see these new initiatives occurring, particularly in Europe. But I know it's not only in Europe that these activities are taking place. So much to think about. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And hopefully we'll have many more good conversations and good learning experiences in future. So now I think, Marta, we close the formal side. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.